This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we will call the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting of Monday, June 12th to order. Kelly, if you'll take roll call, please.
Hey, Natalie. Kyle Jago.
Here.
Dale Schmidt.
Stranger. Here.
Tracy Fluke.
Here.
Sharon Howell. Here. And Kim Shannon. Here.
Thank you. And we will stand for the pledge of
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll take action on the agenda. If we have a motion on the agenda.
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Dale,
I'll second it.
second by Kyle. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the minute from the Bike Ped Committee meeting on April 10th. Any comments, changes on the minutes? Anybody has?
I didn't see anything. I'm not a grammar person, so
Yeah, I know.
if somebody found that, she's
Yeah.
not here to find it. So.
Yep.
She does a good job.
She does, yeah. You can tell she was at her was there. I just have a couple of quick ones. No one else does. Under 7A. There are just a couple. The engineering is capitalized. I don't think it needs to be. Where the heck did I go? It's like the fifth line down, driving behavior versus engineering issues. Maybe I that up, no cap. And then same thing with speed. And then the next line for drive speed issues, we've got a small as well. And then my last name is spelled wrong on the next line. Fluke asked, put a C in there. It's butchered by a lot of people. F-L-U-C-K. And then on 7B, talks about the Packerland warning field. It's kind of confusing what that actually is, and I was hoping Brian would be here, but I'm assuming what we were referring to was the truncated domes is what they're technically called, but the warnings that are in the curb ramps. So maybe just to word that so it's more clear exactly what we're talking about, and maybe Brian could help you to word that better. Yep. So what that would be. So that's really in the curb ramps. You see those metal plates that are in there that have bumps on it. That's what he's referring to on that. That was all that I had. Anybody else have any other questions?
Nope, I didn't see anything.
Okay. Then I welcome a motion to approve the minutes of those corrections. Somebody?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Dale.
I'll second it.
Second, Kyle. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, guys. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed, nor individuals' names, and board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is anybody online? Anybody in the back that has something that's not on the agenda you would like to mention under public comment? Okay. I just have a couple quick ones. I wanted to thank Annette Abinger and Sharon Monson. They were on the committee, just ended their terms recently, so I wanted to thank them for all their time that they spent on the committee. And then I also want to welcome Kim and Sharon, who are new to the committee, so it's their first meeting. And if you two don't mind, maybe just tell a little bit about yourself, where you live in the village, and you know what you hope, why you want to be on the committee, and what you hope to get.
Okay. I'm Kim Shannon. I grew up on Daisy Lane in Ashwaubenon, and we moved into Holmgren Station 2 years ago. I'm very happy to be back in Ashwaubenon. I really like being outdoor and active. This was I was alerted to the opportunity, and I'm thrilled to be part of this. I'm retired from Green Bay Schools, where I had the chance to work with Tracy on a project, and I substitute teach now.
Thank you. Sharon, how are you?
I'm Sharon Holes. I used to live in Ashwaubenon. My kids went to high school here. We moved up to Swamico, and now I'm back again.
Part of the community.
Pardon?
What part of the community do you live in?
I live in Mansfield Flats Apartments. And Kelly Service is the one that asked me if I'd be interested, and I said, sure, so I was here and listen and learn and
There you go.
contribute what I can. And I walk all those trails, so I kind of have an idea what's icky part and what's not.
There you go. Sounds good. Well, welcome to both of
Thank you.
you, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for volunteering to be on the committee. We appreciate it. And it's nice to have someone in that area. We haven't really had anybody down on the river on that part of the community, so it's nice to have some representation.
Building a new bridge just for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We knew you were coming.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Is it helpful?
I don't think
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
You can.
A couple of big craters are gonna.
Yeah,
This.
Well, it's nice from a distance. Thank you for just introducing yourself. Okay, item 7 is reports and updates from the different departments. First, we'll start with Ashwaubenon Public Safety. Ben Lubna, is that correct, last name? Limbo, sorry.
That's all right.
He is here to give a report on public safety.
We have a pedestrian safety traffic grant that we're going to be doing on the 14th from 3 to 9 p.m. The target areas are going to be the Pilgrim, South Oneida intersection, and then Holmgren and Marvell for the Rockford. So we're basically monitoring the area for any violations of traffic and pedestrian issues and violations. Other than that, that's only a traffic grant that we have coming up. We do regular speed patrol grants in the village and throughout the Brown County area. We've been doing those all summer so far, in the spring. We've just started 2 new officers for public safety, and one is going to the academy starting in the next month or so. So we're finally starting to come up to a minimum staffing levels, and just in time for some more people. So
Yeah.
we'll be looking to more of this one. If you saw the cars in the front parking lot, our back lot is now being resurfaced. So it's gonna be like that for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Parking might be an issue up front, so,
Yeah.
So it's the start of criminal season, so we're gonna be pretty busy.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is the one weather, Joe.
one weather turns out, we get a lot busier, so our officers have definitely stepped up as far as the speed patrols on their normal duties on top of what they already have going on. So they're just being really proactive, right? So no issues there.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to add is the Wello is going to be sponsoring a pedestrian safety enforcement operation, which will be on Wednesday. They're having 2 2-hour training sessions for local officers. And that's the old Frogger, or what they call Frogger. So I know Ashwaubenon will be sending a couple officers to that, and it's basically 2-hour training to teach them about, how to do that enforcement action and a little bit more about pedestrian safety and motorists and how they interact and how they should or should not interact. So like I said, I know Ashwaubenon will be sending that. And Natalie, I don't know if you want to add anything with that at all.
Yeah, we just really heard from local law enforcement that, to have their, to improve the confidence of officers to actually enforce those laws, it would be really helpful to have this training. So we were able to get some grant funding to support some of that training. Actually, Peter Fluke of We Bike ETC is going to be able to provide that. And so there would be a portion where it's the training, and then they're actually going to go out on the street and then do a couple different activities so they can get kind of that real world experience in it too. So officers from across the county are going to be able to do that together. And as Tracy mentioned, there'll be 2 different sessions on Wednesday.
Yeah, Green Bay Police Department, morning session and afternoon session that they'll offer for that. So anyone's interested in going to watch, I'm sure that they wouldn't have a problem with that as well. So, but thanks, Wello, for putting that together. Anything else, Ben, or anybody else have any questions for Ben on any public safety type issues? Thank you. Thanks for coming today. And as I tell the department heads, feel free to leave if you have other things to do. You do not have to stay for home. So, totally up to you.
I'll stay for it.
We'd love to have you, but you decide. Public Works and Engineering, I know Brian is
Yeah.
on.
I'll give you a brief update. So you have the written report in there, obviously no updates right now on Broadway and some pedestrian. Bike stencils on Cormier. This is kind of tied to a longer seasonal effort. Crews are currently doing like all the hand painting, so crosswalks, things of that nature are being conducted right now. The long line striping that we would do on Cormier, that gets contracted out by another entity. I think last year we used Kewaunee County. So based on their schedule and their availability, they'll come in sometime mid to late summer to complete all the long line painting on that. Element Way and Morris Avenue. So if you haven't been over by Element Way, just right over here off of Marvell, that project has been completed for this year, so they have reached substantial completion. They paved the final layer of asphalt on the portion that was completed previously, and they have the binder layer down on the completely newly reconstructed portion that runs east to west from Element Building 4 over to Oneida Street. Morris Avenue is progressing very well. They are just finishing up or working on sidewalks right now. So they're putting on the new sidewalks on both the south and north side of the street. I think WPS has a few utility poles that they have to locate yet. And then once that's done, they'll have final completion or substantial completion on that project. We suspect that they'll be probably pulling out of that area about mid-July if weather holds out well. So that project has actually gone extremely well for us. Ben mentioned the parking lot here, not necessarily related to pedestrian improvements, but park project. Many of the parking lot areas over at Cornerstone are being redone as part of the same contract. So if you are biking around the village and stop at a park and stop at Cornerstone Park, for that matter, that's been redone as well. We are meeting with engineering companies and Brown County and DOT to talk about Lombardi Access Road. So if you recall, our plan is to reconstruct the access road from Marvell over to Argonne Street, and as soon as next year. So the village is contracting with Ayers to assist in the design of that effort. So part of that conversation is getting approval from the DOT and Brown County and possibly shifting that road. We don't know for certain if we can, but moving that road slightly to accommodate pedestrian accommodations on what will be the south side of the road, fronting the businesses on that street. Brookwood is part of that project. Sidewalk on Brookwood from Argonne or from Marvell to Argonne is part of that same project. So looking at that. Last but not least, the Alden Station Trail that's tied to the Ashwaubenon Bridge project. If you've been to Ashwaubenon Park, the bridge is going along extremely well. Anticipate substantial completion early to mid-July for sure. On that particular project, the challenge, however, has come to our acknowledgement is the trail project to the north of the bridge along Alden Station. There were some grade issues with how they finished the grades on the back of the lots. That's then creating some issues with the final grade of the trail. So we are working with McMahon to redesign that so that it appropriately drains to the river and doesn't basically create a bird bath along the trail. So we're working on that, and once that's been completed, we will be looking to complete that project later this summer or fall. That pretty much covers it from Public Works and from our parks.
Joe, question. So who has the responsibility, like if there's certain tree limbs grow in front of a stop sign? Is that us or is that the owner of the property or?
No, it would be us, as long as it's a street tree. If it's a private tree, let's say it's in the yard, a big silver maple for that matter.
Yeah, no, it's on a corner. It's just starting to do it. It's on Carroll and Timber.
Contact the forestry department.
Yeah, okay.
Question on Alden Station Trail, is that going to be relocated at all, Joe, or is it just going to be the grades
The
to
finished
be
grade and the
adjusted?
elevation grade of the trail needs to be adjusted. Because right now, the rear yards of the condos or townhomes, I should say, come down to the trail, and then it goes and banks the river back up. So it kind of just creates this burn back from the trail, and so the water would just sit there and wouldn't drain properly. So we have to come up with a better drainage plan for the trail.
So the location will remain the same, it's just a matter of changing the grade of the trail. And then the Lombardi Access Road Trail that you're putting in the ped foundation, will that come back to this committee for some input as far as design and?
Yeah, we can. Right now, we're seeing what is even feasible, but yeah, we certainly can put together when we get to like a 30% design phase, walk you through that way.
That would be great.
Yes, where's the Lombardi access?
Joe, maybe you can explain it.
Yeah, so if you know where the Metro Market is, the old Pick and Save store, Chuck E. Cheese, there's that access road that fronts Lombardi. That road is a village street. So we're looking at adding sidewalks, at least on the south side of the street right now, to continue the pedestrian friendly walking from the Titletown district to what will eventually be a Bass Pro Shops, it's all the same. So just having that connection, right now, there's no sidewalk or pedestrian accommodations on that access road. So shifting it to the north, adding sidewalks to create that connection between those.
That's great.
Yeah, and that would create then an access all the way from Park Place development all the way then to the Titletown area with the sidewalk. So that would be a nice pedestrian access to have there. Okay, so yeah, if you could maybe keep that in mind and bring it to us to have a look at it too, this committee, that would be great. Anything else, Joel, or any other questions for Joel for engineering? Okay, Park and Rex is not here, so we'll push that out, and if he comes, we'll get them later if that works. And then, well, Natalie, anything else to add?
Awesome, yeah, I have a couple things to add. So I will send out the results of the 2022 Yield to Your Neighbor campaign efforts. We were able, there was a few groups that did the Frogger events in the same location, and so we were actually able to see how compliance rates changed at those locations because they were at the same location. So overall, we did see an increase in compliance to yield in the crosswalk, a 15% increase in compliance at those locations that they did them at the same place. So I'll send that out, and it can be, if it can be included in the minutes, that way you can kind of take a look at all of the different metrics that we're gathering for that. Yield to Your Neighbor campaign is going to be back this year. We are going to do 3 different dates again for Frogger activities. Ashwaubenon is going to be a partner on that project. The first one is June 29th. The second one is August 31st. And the third will be October 4th. And that's also Walk to School Day. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Frogger, it's like the old video game where, you know, with appropriate warning and vesting, we have folks actually crossing the crosswalk, and state law is to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. And so there is law enforcement personnel that help enforce those that law. And so it's been really successful at getting all of Brown County municipalities together. So on the same day in different locations, law enforcement is doing those activities. So we produce a Google map so you can see across Brown County where all those areas are. This year we have Ashwaubenon, De Pere, Green Bay, Pulaski, Howard-Suamico, and then Brown County, who does, you know, for Bellevue and Alloway as well. So we're still working on Wrightstown. That's our, to go as far out as Wrightstown. But we're really excited to have all those groups on board. And again, that free training for all of those officers is going to be held this Wednesday to get more comfortable and confident with what those rules are. So we also have a bike rodeo that is going to be scheduled for August 2nd. And this is an opportunity we're going to be working with a couple different bike ped advocacy groups, and we'll have free bike helmets for kids and start to teach kids as well the rules of the road. And then we're also testing out in Green Bay Yield to Neighbor magnets that are actually on police cars right now. If successful, we'd be looking at if other municipalities want to put those on their car, they can as well. And then I think the only other thing not related to your Yield to Your Neighbor, but something that has kind of bubbled up through the Greater Green Bay Communities Alliance is there are a number of RRFBs, is it a double R?
RRFBs, yeah.
That are going in across Brown County. For example, Green Bay got a grant to put in 64 just in Green Bay, but we've heard from other municipalities that there are more, and really trying to educate the public on pushing the button. So they're no good if we're not pushing the button, and really trying to understand that that's a key component to them actually working. So we don't know if we can get the rights to the soundtrack Push It, the song, but we thought it'd be kind of a fun little like push it, you know, to try to do an education campaign across Brown County, because we know that they're in all of our municipalities. So we did receive a little bit of funding to do an educational campaign. So we'll be reaching out to Ashwaubenon as well to see if we want to get that.
Is everybody familiar with what an RRFB is? Basically, there's one on 9th Street, there's one on Ridge. It's the one that you push a button and it flashes to let people know the motorists that they have to stop.
Riverside Drive?
Riverside actually has a hawk signal.
Okay.
So that's different. That stops traffic. They get a red light and they have to wait till the pedestrian has an access that way.
Cormier Road has a couple of them.
Yes, Cormier Road also, that's
And
right.
I can see them both from my house, and I see those lights flashing more than I did a year ago. So people are, just anecdotally, I feel people are using them more than they were in the past.
So yeah, like Natalie said, Green Bay's putting 64 of them in the next couple of years. And Ashwaubenon has quite a few, and they're very effective for pedestrians, as long as one of the things, they got a push button. I saw a lady with a stroller the other day, her and a little boy, and they're just standing there, push the button, yell my window, push the button. But, people just don't understand, so I think getting the campaign and the education out there in conjunction.
I'll be one of AI, you step in front of the pole. Push the button.
Yeah.
Or push the
Yeah,
button.
yeah.
Push the button.
So, yeah, hello there. Please push the button. Anything else, Gabby? Okay, any other questions for Natalie? Maybe for Kim and Sharon that are new to the community, you could explain Wello just real briefly to them, why you're doing what you do.
Yeah, I know, we work with Kim, but so Wello, we're a nonprofit organization in the greater Green Bay community, and our whole mission is around creating community conditions that are fair and just to drive high levels of health and well-being. So we work in active community spaces, local food access, mental health in schools, as well as we have developed a local resident health and well-being measurement survey and some other tools to kind of measure where we are, measure progress, and then help launch different community-led action projects.
How do you get the attention of the public? Like you just had the article in the paper, something, it was a nice article, about just what you just talked about. But how do you get the attention of people that don't get the paper?
Well, we don't just do it in the paper.
I know. How do you,
Yeah, I think it's, it's a combination of things, right? So you want to have a multiple different strategies. So, that's why we're really thankful that our local law enforcement are working with us to do the Frogger. That obviously hits a different route, right? And we have our local law enforcement who are pushing that out through their socials, through their channels. It's a community type effort, right? So we have the Frogger events, we do some of the other event-based things. This year we'll have a little bit more money to do more like billboards that are targeted, bus ads. So it is in the buses as well. So if you go into, if you're riding Metro, there's the Yield to Neighbor signs on the buses, website, constantly writing.
because I know we've talked about this in the past, but there actually was an article in the press, it's maybe within the last month, about how you have to give that bicycle rider 3 feet, and you have so many seconds of a light, that if the light doesn't switch and you're in a bike, you can go through the red light as long as you're clear. Things that most people, I wasn't even aware of until I joined this committee. We started talking about it. So my question is, how do we get, we've always talked about, how do we get the awareness out there to all the people, the person driving the car too, right? Not just the person on the bicycle.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's why, there's a lot of community partners that, it's really great when you can get community partners together, because then you can scale it a little bit more than just one organization, right? So working with the Bicycle Collective and Center for Childhood Safety and, engineering and all different.
do you get an opportunity to go into the school systems themselves and talk to the children or not?
Center for Childhood Safety does that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there are Winners Wear Helmets program. If you're familiar with that program, it paused during the pandemic, but it is now back. And so they're going to be in schools, that program.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Natalie, one other thing that you mentioned, and I'm glad you did, I was going to bring it up. You have that community wellness survey that you do every other year.
Yep.
And the more people that see that, the better. So since Joel was here, I was wondering if there's a way for the village to put that on their website, their social media. Just, it's a link to a community wellness survey. It's done every other year. And then there are folks at St. Norbert's and UWGV that compile it. And I'm not going to go into it a great deal, but I was hoping that maybe there's a chance for the village just to put it on their website someplace that people would see it. So the more people that respond, the more valuable the survey is.
Yeah.
So I think we have maybe in the
Yeah, I
past.
think we did a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. So whenever it comes out again, just let us know. In fact, let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
We'll get it out there.
Give us a- All right, anything else, Natalie? Otherwise, thank you for being here.
And that survey will be July 15th to August 31st. So it's always the same 6-week period. So get ready.
Yeah. Before you know it, it'll be here. All right, thank you, Natalie. Items 8A or 8 items for discussion and possible action. Item A is a presentation on Holmgren Way corridor study from Lombardi to Cormier. And I know Cole is here. He is from Brown County Planning.
Yep.
And he is going to go through the presentation. The village bike ped committee, I don't remember how long, a year ago maybe, proposed this. It went to village board. Village board said, yes, let's do this. And Brown County was gracious enough to say, what, we'll do it. So Cole's here to present the findings after his study.
Yeah, so while
Yeah.
Joel cues it up, as Tracy said, you asked me to come roughly a year ago or so and talk about, I think specifically the Brown County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, and some of the features of that plan, which was This happened last time too.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, after that point, I did talk to some village staff, I talked to Tracy, and I talked to some others, and there was an interest in doing a corridor study for Holmgren Way. And we talked about the extent of that corridor study, and we decided that the characteristics of Holmgren Way between Lombardi Avenue and Cormier Road were such that we should do, kind of a closer look and determine if, the various levels of safety and accessibility through there. And once we do that, get an idea of what perhaps could be modified to increase safety and accessibility for bicyclists and pedestrians.
And we have this.
So there you are.
And with that,
No, what should it matter? Can I ask you a quick question?
you bet.
Did you get a copy of the sidewalk survey? Because remember Public Works Doug did the sidewalk survey for us and looked at all of the intersections. Did you get a copy of that when you did this?
I
Because
did not.
he did look at all the crossings on Holmgren Way. So that may be something to talk to Brian about or Joel.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I think it's in your packet, the study,
is.
correct?
It
All right,
is.
so I'll just start and then we can kind of pick it up as we go. I think I'm okay right now, but we'll see. If I miss a slide, let me know.
I'll let you know.
So, all right, so again, I gave you some background. So basically, to begin the process, what I wanted to do is take a look at the corridor more closely. So obviously, we've all been there many times, but I wanted to get an idea of the various characteristics of that portion of the corridor. And so we started with the physical characteristics. And one is basically, it's about a 48-foot wide concrete street with 4 12-foot driving lanes at this point. There's no parking along the corridor. It is a bus route, a 2-directional bus route, Monday through Saturday. And it is an emergency response route because obviously the public safety building is right along the corridor. So in addition to those physical characteristics that are in the study, we took a look at a few other things. One, we want to take a look at the existing and emerging land uses along the corridor. And as I'm sure you know, the corridor has quite a few different land uses that are currently in place or in the process of being developed. A lot of it is residential, but you're seeing more and more hospitality in terms of hotels, et cetera. There's plenty of entertainment venues. There's some industrial. So it's kind of a mixed bag of uses along the corridor right now. So we want to kind of get an idea of what that looks like right now and what it's going to look like over the next several years. We also took a look at the village's comprehensive plan to get an idea of what the vision for this area is. And what we found is that the entire corridor is in what's called the Village Center District, which is envisioned to be, like it's shaping up to be right now, an area that has a variety of different land uses, very kind of eclectic mix of land uses, as well as enhanced bicycle and pedestrian access along this section of the corridor. Yep, there we go, look at that.
You don't need that, I'm sorry.
I think I'm okay then.
Yeah.
So on top of all that, I did take a look at the existing bike and pedestrian facilities, which we'll get into a little in more detail later on in the presentation. But right now, basically, we know that there are sidewalks along both sides of Holmgren Way right now. There are no bike pedestrian facilities along Holmgren Way, but there are striped bicycle lanes on Cormier Road at the very south end of the corridor. Okay. So again, you might want to look at your packets for that. So again, one of the things we were taking a look at here is safety. And so we started by taking a look at crash statistics for a 5-year period between 2018 and 2022. And what we found is in that period, there were 8 primary crash types for a total of 34 reportable crashes within the corridor. There were 3 crashes at the very south end, but those were in a construction zone. So those were kind of episodic, so I didn't include those in the overall analysis. So basically during that 5-year period in the corridor, you had 34 reportable crashes and 13 injuries. And again, there were quite a wide variety of crash types, but one of the most common crash types was pedestrian. And
There you go. Is that a little bit better?
perfect, awesome. Okay. So we took a closer look at pedestrian crashes here. And again, there were 6 reported in this period and there were 6 injuries. So what we found when we took a closer look is all 6 pedestrian crashes occurred at or immediately south of Armed Forces Drive. We also found that 5 of those 6 crashes were mid-block crashes, which are crashes that occurred away from the intersection. And again, they were bunched up pretty tightly just south of that intersection there too. We also found that 4 of the 6 pedestrian crashes resulted in serious injuries to the pedestrians. And you can see that in your packet. Those are all pretty much clustered here. We also found that, one more, not quite. Did I do that? Okay. We also found that 3 of the 4 serious injury crashes involved alcohol. 2 were inebriated pedestrians and 1 involved an inebriated driver. So go ahead. All right, so then we took a look at accessibility in here. So within this corridor, there were 7 what I call major intersections, and those are basically the intersections that aren't cul-de-sacs. And you'll see those up here. So I want to take a look at how accessible those intersections are throughout this corridor. And we found that, first of all, as I mentioned before, there are currently sidewalks along both sides of Holmgren Way along the entire corridor. We found that crosswalks at Holmgren Way exist at all 7 major intersections, but only 5 of those 7 intersections have traffic control devices right there. So 2 of them are uncontrolled at this point. And there are no on or off street bicycle facilities along the corridor currently. All right. So as a part of any study like this, one of the things we want to take a look at are traffic volumes. And so what we did is we took a look at what are called annual average daily traffic volumes, or AADTs. Now, you might ask, what's the difference between an AADT and just a typical daily traffic volume? Basically, when we do traffic studies like this, we want to take a look at an annualized average daily traffic volume because we don't want to get a snapshot of traffic when a count occurs on a day or 2. We want to try to get an idea of what the average traffic is for an entire year. So we're trying to kind of flatten that out, eliminate spikes, things like events, like school in, school out, various other things. And there's a formula that the state DOT uses to try to annualize the short-term counts they do. So we want to take a look at this annual average daily traffic count. So there are actually 2 locations along the study corridor that have these counts done on a regular basis. One is just south of Armed Forces Drive, and the other one is just north of Marvell Lane. So the most recent AADT for the area just south of Armed Forces Drive was done in 2022, so it's very recent. That one wound up being about 5,400 vehicles per day on the average. The other one, which was just north of Marvell, was done in 2018, so it's a little out of date, but it was pre-pandemic. So we don't have a pandemic factor in there, something that might have been done immediately after 2020 or 21. And that was, again, just north of Marvell Lane, and that was about 6,000 vehicles per day.
And that's north and southbound, correct? That's all traffic moving through that.
That's correct. That's all the traffic moving through the corridor on an average day. Okay. So then to kind of get an idea of what was going on over the last several count periods, to look at trends along the corridor, we did take a look at the last 3 count periods from DOT. And what we found is, generally speaking, at both locations during the last 3 count periods, the traffic volumes have been kind of trending downward on a regular basis over that period. Okay. So in terms of findings, the statistics suggest for safety that reducing the vehicle-vehicle and vehicle-pedestrian conflicts around this section of the corridor could reduce crashes within the study area. So we started by looking at those that are highlighted in yellow. And those are crashes that are characteristics of multi-lane streets that don't have left turn lanes or left turn bays. So those are typically like the side swipe same direction, where you have 2 lanes beside each other. The inside lane overtook the outside lane for a right turn, go into a driveway or intersection. and then inside left turn rear end, where somebody is kind of waiting in the inside lane to take a left turn, somebody doesn't realize it and rear ends.
Oh,
Yes.
just to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Hello, it's nice to see you. On the one immediately south of our Forces Drive, that's down 2,000 over the years.
Correct.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And if it were something that was very low compared to maybe higher counts on either side of it, I would see that as kind of an anomaly. But it does appear as if it's trending downward, and it's very possible that that accelerated during the pandemic when travel patterns maybe were reduced, and then maybe we're coming back up gradually, but people found other routes to take.
Okay.
I think that's one of the reasons at the other count location, you have kind of a more gradual decrease because all those counts occurred prior to the pandemic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I talked about this a little bit earlier before. So study findings in terms of pedestrian accessibility, again, all 7 major study area intersections do have Holmgren Way crosswalks, but only 5 of those major intersections are signalized, and the remaining 2, which are at Marvell and Bellin, do not have any kind of pedestrian protection or notification devices at the Holmgren crossings. And I say protection because a traffic signal doesn't protect you. It's just a means of giving you, right of way to go across, but you still have to be careful.
Can you back up again to the study findings real quick? You talked the green on that one, that was
Sure.
marked in green.
Yep.
I don't think you.
Yeah, so the green here, again, this just kind of reiterates what I talked about before about the pedestrian crashes and how, that's something that if you were to reduce conflict opportunities along the corridor, there's a good chance that the pedestrian crashes would decrease as well, especially since over the study period, 5 of those 6 crashes occurred mid-block. So there was no control anywhere, and a lot of the movements were unpredictable. So it's the number of maybe the speeds and then the number of conflict points in each of those lanes that kind of creates more of an opportunity for crashes. Okay. And there you go. All right. So in terms of bike accessibility, as I mentioned before, Holmgren Way has 4 12-foot lanes, and it was kind of touched on earlier on here that the 12-foot wide travel lanes don't provide enough space for vehicles to safely and legally pass bicyclists without going into the adjacent lane. And as was mentioned earlier, Wisconsin does have a 3-foot law, which requires motorists to provide bicyclists at least 3 feet of separation when they go by them. Of course, when that happens along a road like Holmgren Way as it's currently striped, that forces vehicles to move into the adjacent lane, and it's kind of an unpredictable movement and can contribute to things like side swipe crashes going the same direction. Okay. So when we're trying to get an idea of what the traffic volumes along this corridor would be, I mentioned before that we're dealing with at one point about 5,400 vehicles per day, another point at about 6,000. So I took a look at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation's Facilities Development Manual, or FDM. And that's kind of the, the traffic engineering and at the state and other levels Bible for, how many lanes you might want to have on your road based on various ABTs. So I know it's kind of hard to see here. Hopefully you're able to pick it up either on your screen or in your packet. But basically with the traffic volumes that we have along this corridor right now, when you look at where those would fit and how many lanes would be necessary based on the state's FDM, it's actually well below the threshold for 2 lanes, 1 lane going in each direction, under what they call worst case conditions. And that worst case is basically what can affect traffic capacity the most. So worst case in this situation with the FDM means you might have a lot of driveway cuts, especially commercial driveways. You might have a lot of signals and stop signs. You might have on-street parking. Basically, the corridor might have a lot of things that can really inhibit traffic movement, whereas the best case condition would be like a bridge where you have no access and people just flow freely all the time. Okay, so again, based on the worst case conditions for level of service C, which is a qualitative measure, and typically the state and others design for no worse than level of service D. So you can attain level of service C in the peak along this corridor with the volumes you have right now very easily based on the state's standards with 2 lanes.
And that number still with staying with C could go up as high as 20,000 vehicles, and you could still, is that what that's saying? Then you could still have a level service C with 2 lanes. Is that
Correct.
how you're reading
You
that?
could, but that's under the best case conditions.
Okay, so
Again,
that-
that's where you have no access, you have no traffic control, you have no parking. Basically, again, like a bridge would be a good example of that, where you can just flow uninhibited back and forth without any interruptions. So clearly, this corridor has quite a few driveways. It does have some intersecting streets, doesn't have parking. So, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't call this the worst case scenario out here in terms of flow. But, you know, again, even if it were that worst case scenario, the traffic volumes that exist right now are still not high enough to warrant anything more than 2 lanes.
Except for 10 days out of the year.
Except for 10 days out of the year. Correct. So then with traffic volumes, again, going back with 2-lane streets, and just a couple examples in here of village streets that are currently 2-lane streets that have higher annual average daily traffic volumes as of 2022 than the study section of Holmgren Way. And those are Cormier between Hawk and Ori, and Ridge between Marvell and Orlando. And obviously Ridge, this section of Ridge is not immediately north south, but just a little ways south of Lambeau. I mentioned before we took a look at the comprehensive plan. So here's where the study corridor falls in the village center district in the village's comprehensive plan. So it's obviously pretty much right in the heart of that district in here. And again, the idea with this district is to create a vibrant, multi-story walkable district with a mix of uses. The comprehensive plan also recommends installing wide outside curb lanes for bicyclists along the entire study corridor in this area. However, as we've talked about before, with the current lane configuration out there, there's no space to do that with the 4 lanes that are 12 feet apiece. So to summarize the findings real quick, so basically, again, there were 34 relevant reportable crashes within the study area between 2018 and 2022. We found that 9 of those crashes were characteristic of those multi-lane streets with no left turn lanes or bays. 5 of the 6 pedestrian crashes that occurred within this area during that 5-year period were mid-block crashes, and all 4 of the serious crashes occurred at mid-block locations. There are sidewalks along both sides of Holmgren within the study area, but no on-Ross Street bicycle facilities. All 7 major intersections within the study area have painted crosswalks, but only 5 of the 7 intersections have protection devices in the form of traffic signals for people to have be given the right of way to cross the street. Study area is entirely within the village center district, which is supposed to be that diverse, multi-use, walkable district. The comprehensive plan also recommends widening the wide outside curb lanes for bicycles, but there's no space to do it at this point with the current lane configuration. The traffic volumes in the area are not high enough to warrant 4 travel lanes based on the Wisconsin DOT and frankly other design standards. And these have been generally trending downward over the last few count periods. And we've also found that there are 2-lane streets in the village and elsewhere throughout Brown County that have higher annual average daily traffic volumes than Holmgren, and they seem to function just fine. So in terms of recommendations, we have a couple options here for you guys to consider to what we believe improve bike and pedestrian safety and accessibility within this corridor. The one is to install an RRFB at the intersection of Holmgren Way and Marvell, and that's just right over here. And you can see the little push button. You got to push that. Don't forget to push that. Got to push it. Got to push it real good. Okay. And then
You gotta dance first too.
no, I don't dance. I don't do that. And of course, why do we do this? So basically, at this location right here at the corner, where you would put the RRFBs, it's kind of a pedestrian collection point for the people who are in the hotels or living in the condos and apartments to the north, to the west. They may be walking over for an event from the west, from Oneida Street or something, collecting at this point to cross to get to the stadium for games, concerts, whatever it might be, and even go farther south than that to the Epic Events Center or whatever they might want to go to. So again, this seems like a logical collection point, not just now, but as additional things develop here in the future. And it would make, I think this would be a fairly low cost, highly effective way to improve safety for pedestrians at that The second recommendation is something for you to consider as an option, and that's basically because 4 driving lanes aren't warranted based on the standards I've cited today. I think you have an opportunity to do something a little bit different than you have right now to increase safety and accessibility. So we would have you consider converting the 4 12-foot travel lanes that you currently have to something like this, where you have a single travel lane in each direction, which would be 11 feet, a 5-foot bicycle lane striped on each side of the road, and then a center turn lane, which would be roughly 16 feet. And when we talk about a pilot, we recommend that if you wanted to do a pilot project for something like this to see how this would function, you would do it for at least 12 months. And the reason it should be at least 12 months is because you want to get a full cycle of all the seasons, the full year of events, and other things, so you have an idea of all the different things you might experience and how this road would function during all those different events. So again, because the traffic volumes would allow you to do this, there are some anticipated benefits of restriping, and some of these include things like the elimination of crashes, characteristic of multi-lane streets without left turn lanes or bays. And that was, 9 of 34 crashes during that 5-year study period. We think that you would have a reduced likelihood of mid-block and intersection pedestrian crashes as a result of reducing the number of lanes, because you'd have fewer conflict points. And chances are, this has been the case elsewhere, when that kind of lane reduction has occurred, travel speeds are reduced. So if something does happen, it would be less severe, and people would have a better chance of being able to avoid something if traffic was traveling at a lower speed. Now, obviously, we could say, it's important for people to go up to Armed Forces Drive, cross at the light, and come back down. But the fact is, and the statistics kind of bear this out, there are a lot of people who want to go directly across the street between various establishments at various times of the year. And, something like this could help that actually. If we're assuming people will do that anyway, this is a way to, in my view, not reduce travel capacity, not reduce efficiency when it comes to moving vehicles through the area on a day-to-day basis, but also make it safer when people make those decisions to make those mid-block crossings between the bar and Doozies or Stadium View and something else. And that's happening. So again, something to think about. Another anticipated benefit is you would have increased travel predictability along the corridor, because now the inside driving lanes would no longer function as de facto left turn lanes. And again, you have so many driveways, you have a lot of connecting streets. There are a lot of places where people stop in that inside lane to take a left turn, which again is an unpredictable movement, can lead to crashes, and it really kind of reduces the efficiency of that inside lane in each direction. That would be then replaced with an actual left turn lane, that center left shared left turn lane, where people could exit the flow of traffic when making a left turn and wait for the gap before they turn in, without forcing people behind them to stop. Would also be a way for bicyclists to be able to comfortably ride along the corridor, and allowing vehicles then not to have to leave their travel lane when moving around the vehicles. They could have that 3-foot cushion easily in there without having to leave their travel lane like they do today. This is something, again, this is recommended in the village's comprehensive plan, but it's also going to be a way when you're slowing down traffic, making movements more predictable and everything else. It's an improved environment for the increasing number of people living along and near this section of Holmgren Lane. And obviously quite a few people live here now. And the plan here, and you're seeing things come up all over the place, the plan is to really encourage a lot more people to live along and near and to visit this area and to move about, not just in cars, but on foot, by bike, and using other modes. So that would be a way to really kind of improve that environment. It would also be with the more predictable traffic movements, the lower vehicle speeds, it would also be a better environment for things like patio seating, all the way through the corridor, and pedestrian movement through between businesses at the intersections, and when people make this decision, even mid-block. And you might be aware of this, and this is something that was in an earlier slide I didn't touch on. So basically, if you're curious if other communities are doing this right now, we do have examples of 2-lane streets or 2-lane boulevards and 3-lane streets throughout Brown County. They're all over the place now. But a conversion that's going to be happening very soon is in Appleton. Maybe you've heard about this, read about this. The city intends to do an 18-month pilot project on College Avenue right in the middle of downtown. So they're going to take their current 4-lane street that has parking and no left turn lanes, and they're going to turn it into kind of what we're inviting you to consider as an option here, which would be a single lane of travel in each direction, 2 bicycle lanes, and a center left turn lane. Only they're going to keep parking, so they'll have that too. And they're doing that with a street in the middle of downtown that has an annual average daily traffic volumes between 13,500 and 14,300. So it's a much higher volume street. Again, it's not something that's necessarily permanent. It's a pilot, but they're going to do it for about 18 months. And again, if you want to consider this as an option for this section of Holmgren Way, we would recommend that you do a pilot too. It doesn't have to be permanent. Give it a shot. But again, if you're going to do a pilot, it should be at least 12 months to capture a whole year's worth of activity.
Colin, so I don't know if you are aware of anybody, but so in this area here, that's why Appleton is a little different. We have a lot of parking lots here. So right-hand turn, left-hand turn makes sense for sure. Right-hand turn, there's a lot of these parking lots that are parking cars during games and during things that are going on at the rest center. So now are you literally stopping the entire traffic flow for them to get into the lot because they're trying to turn right into that parking lot?
No, because the difference.
Can they go into the bike lane?
Well, no, they wouldn't go into the bike lane. So kind of the difference here in terms of delay for the traffic behind them is for a left turning vehicle, there's often some people coming in the opposite direction they have to wait for.
Yep.
So they have to sit there for a while, and that's where those kind of backups happen. With the right turn, unless of course you have pedestrians and things like that, you can typically just make your right turn right away. So you don't have those backups occurring. So people may have to slow down, but with a restriped street, they're going to be going closer to the posted speed limit anyway, and it's going to be easier for them to do that. Plus, typically they won't have those backups you would have with a left turning vehicle.
As long as you're not somebody standing right at the turn in to collect the money and they have to wait for them to, but I would imagine the businesses would work with whatever the street condition is.
Yeah, and I know there's going to be a real concern about how something like this would operate on an event day, like a Packers game or a Resch event. I mean, those are certainly concerns, but at the same time, I guess what we're looking at here is something that would actually serve the village on a day-to-day basis. And you would actually then, on those situations, I think you could still work with it pretty easily. People would get used to it like they do a lot of other things around here. And one of the things that I think a lot of people really don't disregard, but they really underestimate the value of it here. When they compare the Lambeau Field environment with other big cities that might have freeways and ramps and stuff like that around their stadiums, is we have one of the most efficient traffic systems out of any NFL city in the entire country, without fail, because of the grid street system. We don't have funnels here. A lot of those cities people have to funnel into, because if you go freeways, there's not a freeway connection every 10 feet.
Right.
There are just a handful around those stadiums. And yes, they're freeways, and once they're on there, in theory, they can move a little bit faster. But obviously people here have learned how to utilize the grid street system. And so, very few, relatively speaking, people actually park at Lambeau Field. They park all around the area, and they know, based on where they want to go after the game's over, pretty much where they want to park, because then they park typically what they perceive as the location is going to be the easiest to leave. And they may have to wait a few minutes, but that's okay. It's still a major event. We're talking 80,000 people in one spot, and if the game's close, everyone's leaving at one time. So, but the ease at which you can leave a Lambeau event or even a Resch event is, by comparison to a lot of bigger cities, not even close. This is a much more efficient system here. So a single road like this, kind of like right now with Ridge Road, south of the Lambeau Field, which is 2 lanes. We work with that. You can work with this too, I believe. And again, people would adjust to it. And in terms of if there's concern that, a narrower street's going to deter people from coming here to events, that's not going to happen. People are still going to come to Packers games. They're going to come to Resch events. They're going to go to all the different establishments along here when they have events. That's going to happen. It's just that, let's say somebody does have to wait a few extra minutes to get out of here after an event. Maybe they'll stop by a business. they'll have
It's probably
something to eat.
More
Something
safety
to drink.
advantageous as well, because you don't have this car here and this car here passing the other car. Some
Correct,
pedestrian walking in front of the car.
correct. And that, yeah, that double threat
Sure.
is something that creates the most danger for pedestrians.
Yeah.
And when you eliminate that, that creates a much, much safer pedestrian environment. And again, considering the number of driveways and intersecting streets along this section of Holmgren Way, you know, if you're able to eliminate the left turning vehicles from the flow of traffic, that's going to increase efficiency tremendously.
Even with a right turning vehicle, because you have that twiddle at center turn lane, the motor vehicle behind could lap over into that a little bit and get around that.
I was
maybe that
curious if
right
they
turn.
could or couldn't.
Well, I think they do, and they,
You
you know.
can, I mean, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but I'll tell you, I guess, you know, but you know, speaking of that, one of the reasons that I'm recommending a 16-foot wide center turn, that seems like a lot of space. Well, it's because you have so many opportunities to make left turns along the corridor. So when you have a center left turn lane or a twiddle, basically what you don't want to have happen are people to enter that lane at the same time and hit each other, you know, head on.
Right.
So with a 16-foot wide lane like that, you have opportunities if people are entering at the same time to avoid each other without shooting back into the travel lane unexpectedly and cause a crash. So you'll have more space to maneuver in there. So again, with the number of driveways and intersecting streets along here, I thought a slightly wider center turn lane might make the most sense, especially then since you still have enough room then for 5-foot bicycle lanes. And you also have plenty of room for 11-foot travel lanes, which for, you know, a street like this, 11-foot travel lane should be plenty.
Can I just ask, this may not be appropriate or not, but is it a proven fact that the bicycle lane between the parked car and the moving traffic is safe? Is it,
It is, but it really depends on the design of the roadway. So if you have in some situations when you try to put a bicycle lane next to a parking lane between the driving lane and parking lane, when you don't have enough space, what happens is people may be able to park outside the bike lane barely, but then there are situations where you can get doored, where somebody just, you know, unexpectedly opens the door into the bike lane and bam, you hit. So ideally, what you want to do when you have the bicycle lane between the parking lane and the driving lane is have enough room, maybe not to cover the entire door, but to allow bicyclists to avoid a door and still stay within the bicycle lane.
yeah, because you swerve around and come.
Correct. Yep,
picked up.
from behind you, right. So you want to be able to make that maneuver within the bicycle lane, and a properly designed parking lane with a bicycle lane will let you do that.
I had two thoughts, and you kind of addressed both of them. That area of the village is going to be more population dense than it historically has been, with all those new residents, all those new apartments. So that may create more traffic on that street at certain times of the day, but, you know, it's going to be, you know, I guess more or less random. There's going to be people coming and going in the morning drive time and evening drive time, but a lot of those people are going to be retired or whatever, so there could be more random things. You know, so that may be a problem, but that's from just the 10,000 foot view. On this committee, we talk a lot about encouraging people to walk and bike, and we're hoping a lot of those people will decide to leave their cars at home and use bicycles. So I can see too where something like this would encourage more people to leave their cars at home.
Yeah. And again, you know, the village's comprehensive plan at this point, that's the vision for this whole area, is to make it more walkable, more bikeable, and to invite more people into the area to live, to play, to work to some extent, but really make this a vibrant, diverse, multi-use area, and really encourage not just, you know, various pedestrian and bicyclist trips up and down the corridor, but across. So we know that's happening at various locations right now, especially at the north end. But, you know, as this southern end of this, well, the central and the southern end develops as well, you're going to see more and more people wanting to do that more and more. And I think what we're talking about here would help facilitate that.
When is Appleton actually starting their school? Do you know?
I don't know exactly, but it's pretty soon.
Yeah, it has
It's
to,
very
because
soon.
there's been a lot of Obviously, yeah.
It's very simple.
It'll be interesting because there's a lot of traffic on College Avenue.
Right. A lot of pedestrians, a lot of cars. And again, with the parking element too, that's going to be a little bit interesting too, because you're not just going to have people driving up and down the corridor. You're going to have people going in and out of parking spaces, and that whole interaction will be very interesting. And again, what they're talking about here in terms of volume and in terms of, movements is a lot more, the volume is like much higher than here. And it's also, the movements will be a lot more intricate.
Yep.
So, again, if they're confident there to try this, again, it might be something you want to give it a shot here too.
Is there any studies or anything done in regard to when you go from 4-lane to a 3-lane, the effect on businesses at all, or, along that corridor? If it increases, takes away, anything on that, or access to those businesses?
Well, it kind of depends on the level of activity and the type of businesses along the corridor. So it basically, you have to look at each corridor individually. And when I looked at this corridor, again, you have kind of a mix of entertainment. You have obviously a stadium just down the street here, but you also have kind of some older light industrial businesses. And really, a lot of these businesses that are light industrial and established don't necessarily rely on like pass by or consumer traffic to survive. They're just here and they leave and do their work and come back. So I don't think those will be affected. Again, I think that by slowing traffic down, by making the traffic movements more predictable, by creating a more, maybe a safe and inviting pedestrian bicycle environment here, I think it's going to serve your existing and emerging businesses very well. And again, because again, like Stadium View and in the future, other ones, they have patio seating.
Yep.
And at Stadium View, you can sit out on the patio and you're a few feet from the street. It's going to be a lot more comfortable sitting out there, talking to people, hanging out, listening to music, when the vehicles are going by in a single lane of traffic at a relatively lower speed versus people shooting past you and going around other cars and accelerating and everything else like that. So it's going to create, I think, a more inviting environment for what you have right now, but also what you're looking to achieve in the future.
It'd be a state street like Madison.
Yeah.
That'd be
Not quite like that.
The recommendation on the RFB down construction on Marvell, would you consider with putting a median there at some point? Maybe not during a pilot, but just to have that safe spot in the middle, like on, Oneida has it.
Yeah, and so I guess that's a good point. So one of the other benefits of doing what we're saying might be an option for you to consider here on the street, if you're going to go from 4 lanes to 3, the center left turn lane isn't always necessary. You might have areas where you can actually turn that into a refuge. And so I did take a look at the corridor to see where that might be desirable or possible. Because again, if you have a lot of driveways, you just don't necessarily have a lot of opportunities to do that. So I guess that's something to consider, yes. You'd have to design it in a way that it stays away from the driveways and also provides enough room at the intersection for people to make their turns. But it could be an option. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to throw out a few things here. So this item is for discussion only tonight, so we're not looking for any recommendation. It's being presented to you for the first time, so it's a lot of information, stuff that you have to kind of digest. I think Cole's done a good job of looking at the data and the information that's available in that hand. Now, Cole obviously provides a couple different recommendations or options for pursuit if you want to consider them. There are other options that can be considered too, beyond just what Cole is recommending. As an example, status quo. So Cole is making recommendations based on comprehensive plan, based on traffic counts, traffic crash data, things of that nature. Ultimately, based on the comprehensive plan, looking to increase multimodality to the entire corridor. This particular corridor, from my understanding, was designed and created to maximize capacity and volume, right? And not take into consideration pedestrians and bicyclists as much as moving cars as quickly and as efficiently as possible in a mass event, right? So like Lambeau Field event, Rush Center events, you want to get as many cars moving down not taking into consideration some of those conflict points. So status quo is an option. It may not be the best option. I'm just saying if that is an option that you can continue with that, but recognize you're not going to achieve some of the things that Cole has described as far as increasing pedestrian accessibility, bicycle modality, reducing some of those conflict points that were described. But by going to the modified 3-lane, you have the potential for reducing capacity during peak events, right? Those Lambeau Field events. You do. It's a reality of things, right? We're going from 4 lanes to really effectively 2 lanes. What's the value proposition, right? Is it more important for capacity and volume, or is it more important to pick up some of those other added benefits? The other thing is there could be other options, maybe bicycling, and I'm throwing this out to the bike and ped committee, but so don't, I'm not hoping to create any enemies, but let's say you eliminate the bike lanes, but you maintain parking. Maybe parking is a higher priority along the corridor, but you reduce it down to 2 lanes with the center turn lane. And then that creates other opportunities for future development in the term of bump outs or crossing medians and things like that, and really focus more on the pedestrian side. So that will still achieve a lot of what Cole has described here, but put an emphasis on parking and pedestrians versus bicycle lane. That could be an option as well. So there are multiple options I think we can explore that I think this group could certainly entertain. Beyond that, I think it would be important, these ideas of lane reduction can be highly controversial in your community. Look at Appleton, for example. That was a highly controversial discussion and decision that ultimately I would think they involved the downtown business community in making that decision. So this is a big change for Ashwaubenon. Ashwaubenon can be somewhat reluctant to change. So I think it would be imperative to have conversations with the business community before even a recommendation or action should be taken, because I think it allows them opportunities to provide feedback on what options are available. And it also allows for an opportunity to educate and inform too. If we go in as a village and say, this is what we're doing, I think that will have a larger negative impact to that business community than if we engage with them and allow them to provide feedback, but then at the same time try to educate and inform them of the pros and cons to whatever options are available. So I think that's kind of my speech anyway on this particular item, is just, chew on the information that was presented, but then also recognize there are other options available that we can entertain, that we can entertain with Cole too, to maybe achieve some other goals that maybe somebody else hasn't thought of. So such as parking or things of that nature.
I think it's a great point. The voice of somebody else. I mean, I think Green Bay School System's going through it for the last few weeks. We need to listen to other people to see what their thoughts are. And I think you make a great point.
And I agree with what you said. And when we first thought about asking Cole to do this study, there was some discussion amongst members, and I guess I'm saying this for the new members, but I think a consensus of a lot of us was, well, let's just find out and use this as just get some information, get an outside opinion, and just use this as a starting point for discussions. There was some fear that, well, Cole's going to come in and say this, and it's going to alienate the business community because we're going to be stuck with that. And several of us said, well, let's just see what he says, and then we'll talk about it after we find it, because we don't know what he's going to tell us. But let's just use this as a starting point, and I think that's what you're saying too. Right? We need to, this isn't a decision that's going to be made in this room or in the boardroom. This is going to be the community's decision, but we need information to start, and we need to talk to the business community, talk to the residents in these new apartments, and just find out what people want.
I think one of the main reasons that we did decide to look at this a little bit was the safety of the corridor. And I would think this type of design, and there's lots of other things too, but will provide safety for the motorists, the pedestrian, and the bicyclists. And that's maybe why that's the recommendation you put forward. So if that's something that's really important to us and to the community as a whole, that we want the corridor to be as safe as it can, and that's one of the main components we want, then, that's a factor in it. And maybe parking is an issue. We don't want to have parking or whatever, but I agree with Joel. I mean, it's a big change, and we need to get the input. We need to reach out to our businesses in the area and say, here's what we're thinking. And keep in mind, there's a big massive venue up there. It's only 10 days a week, or 10 days a year. It'd be like building a parking lot for Christmas. You don't do that at the mall. So you just need to keep that in mind. That's just one factor in it as well. So.
If I could just throw one thing out there, I know that the village is close to beginning an update of its comprehensive plan.
Yep.
If you wanted to, I mean, this could be something that could be considered as a part of that process, because the comprehensive planning process, one of the benefits is you're not just looking at something in a vacuum. You're looking at a variety of different factors. You're bringing in a variety of different people, stakeholders, the public, to talk about all these different issues, and not just independently, but how they interact with each other. This could be a piece of information that you might use as an input to the comprehensive plan update and address this issue during that update.
I think that's a great suggestion, and to not necessarily piggyback that, but just to kind of take some of the information now and look at it as an opportunity for immediate change. Those rapid flashing beacons that Cola describes, that's a really easy implementation that doesn't necessarily change the capacity or usage of the road, but it just adds that awareness, knowledge, and protection, if you will, of those pedestrians. So I think that would be certainly something that we would entertain from a staff perspective as part of a budgeting effort for next year, is look at Marvell. That was really one of the reasons why this whole conversation and study was born, was the conversation about accessibility, crossing Holmgren to get to cafe restaurants. Like, that's key. Either rapid flashing beacons at the Borband, I think, is the only other unsignalized intersection. Either that or those yield pedestrian signs that you see right now on Marvell move up. So some other kind of pedestrian awareness. Those are easy fixes that don't necessarily constitute a major change to the form or function of the roadway, that I think people would view as very welcome additions to the corridor to start.
Two things I'll add. If you are going to talk to businesses, I think talking like even beyond just this corridor, we just did a project with Breakthrough, actually. They want more of their employees want to bike to work. And so I asked if we could actually show them some of the bike routes if you're coming from the northeast, south, or west. And it was a little bit difficult to give them good options. But I think just thinking into the future and even beyond just the initial corridor there. And I would just reiterate, I think from a design standpoint, we have the big events, but they are just a few times a year. And like, if you're trying to create an environment, especially with all of the new residential area, I think what I appreciated about this pilot would be that you're also piloting, testing kind of like the environment that you would want people to then choose to live here, right? Do you want to live on a busy street, or do you want to live somewhere where you can walk easily to where you want to go to some of those establishments, especially because it's such a nightlife type, like, and you can go get your groceries, you can go do the other things. So I think thinking about it as what's the feel of that whole area, and what are we trying to do in the future, not just right now, but what does it look like 10 years from now? Maybe even going to some of those places right now where people live, and asking them as well, like, why did you choose to live here? What that might be, in addition to some of the businesses, might be a good way of getting more feedback.
But I'm gonna say this, Cole, that's more data than I would ever dreamed of. I'm more knowledgeable now than I was before we ever started this, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's what you need to start. You need some data to start with.
Yeah.
Well, I think Joel makes a really good point. I mean, obviously what I talked about here is based on existing documents. I talked about the existing and emerging land uses, the mix of uses right here. I mean, and you have an opportunity, if you choose to do this in the future, based on the average daily traffic volumes, to do something other than what you have right now. And as Natalie said, and we talked about throughout this whole discussion, it's something that might be really conducive to what is emerging here. But again, I mean, as a planner, I value comprehensive planning. And again, if you didn't have a comprehensive plan update coming up for the next several years, it'd be one thing, but you do. And this would be, I think, an opportunity to take this information, take a lot of other information you collect, and kind of input that into that update process and look at everything collectively, as opposed to just looking at this quarter as a standalone project.
It's very interesting because, you know, if you do listening sessions and you're going to do something for everybody, not just presuming we would do this in any way, and some will be for targeted audiences, we can take a version of this to inform people. I see how the traffic count and the reduction in it and the really well done graphics of it. I think that is different than saying, hey, we're going to reduce this to a 2-lane road. It'll go over completely different. I thought this was beautifully done and helps me understand. And how lucky are we that Appleton is going to step ahead of us?
Same
Go
thing.
Appleton.
Well, if anyone's ever gone to a DOT public informational, that's exactly what, this is what we're doing.
Yes.
Take it or leave it, give us your feedback. We're not really listening because we're doing it.
Can't go do it anyway. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a design and defend approach. We've kind of referred to that, which is not what we're doing here. Again, I just wanted to kind of lay out some information for you. And again, I think based on the information we have collected, you do have an opportunity here to do something different if you choose to. But I think it would be a good idea to look at this in a large scheme of things, and your update, your conference plan update that's coming soon would be a great chance to do that.
Well, and it's great that we have that opportunity.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you didn't look at it and say, there's no way we can make any changes.
Right.
We can look at it and see what we can do.
It all depends on what you want to do, and you have options.
We have options. Yeah.
And just to clarify, putting some signals in the unsignaled, whatever, pedestrian, the two, that could be done independently, correct? And it wouldn't have to go over kind of timeline for the rest of this.
And as Natalie mentioned, the city of Green Bay is gonna put, what are there, 64 of them in? So even in the few years that they've been on Cormier Road, I see them used a lot more, and people have to learn to push that button, and people have to learn to use a 2-directional center lane, and just because we've always done it this way in the past doesn't mean that's the best way to do it in the future. So I think this is a good way of looking at some options, and especially when I've been around long enough the village to know when Oneida Street stopped where Quick Trip is, and that was it. Then there was like Coca-Cola plant, and Daisy Lane was gravel instead of pavement, and so the village has changed so much, and assuming it's going to change a lot in the future. So this is a good opportunity to say, what's our vision of the village in the future? And I think that the board and administration have done a lot of that thinking in the entertainment district, the Titletown district. So we have to keep looking forward rather than say, well, we can't do that anymore because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, I'm sure they never envisioned the amount of apartments that are going up.
No, I would never.
No, but I would. No.
So, no.
All right, any other questions or comments anyway? But like Joe said, read it over, look at it, ask questions. It's a great document. It gives us some really good ideas on things, and it'll come back, and maybe putting it as part of the comprehensive plan is a good way to do it and get it out there when we do the whole thing. So we appreciate your
Sure.
time.
And if you have any questions or anything else, just let me know.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Hang for one more.
One quick thing for you on
Yeah.
the next.
The next
item.
agenda.
Oh.
So don't leave.
Comprehensive bike plan.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
I'm gonna go
Thank
sit-
you.
I'm gonna go sit.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so item 8B is discussion. Item again, comprehensive bicycle pedestrian plan update at our last meeting, I think, maybe before. We talked a little bit about, we have a comprehensive bike and pedestrian plan already, it needs updating. And I just said, I wondered if Cole could touch a little bit on what the county can do for us if we would choose to go with them. They would bid on the project if it goes out to bid or out for quotes, just like anybody else. But the county has done some bike and pedestrian plans for other communities in Brown County. And I just wanted to ask him if he could just touch on that, what they did, how it worked, and if it would be something that we could consider as well.
Yeah, and so we've obviously have a county plan in place, and we've updated that several times since the 90s. We've actually also, with the exception of Ashwaubenon, we've put together original and then updates to bicycle and pedestrian plans for pretty much every community in the urbanized area over time, and then even some beyond that. So we have a lot of experience in that. And, you know, one of the things we can offer as what we're called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which if you're not familiar with that, that's something that every urbanized area with at least 50,000 people has designated for them at the federal level. And we get federal money to do transportation planning. So obviously we're one of those. So the Planning Commission has an MPO, and what we can do if we're doing a bicycle plan or a bicycle plan update for a community within that MPO area, and Ashwaubenon is in that area, we can actually do that plan at no cost to you because we get the grant funding to do that. We've done that for several communities over the years.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you did for Free or not, because we did it in Alloway, I remember. You guys did our plan there, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so we did Alloway, we've done De Pere, we've done a lot. So if you're looking to do something like that in 2024, here, okay, so let me suggest one thing, just throw it out here for your consideration. If you're going to do a comprehensive plan update over the next year or so, I would recommend that you do that comprehensive plan update first. Once that plan update is finished, take a look at that, because that's kind of your overall, you know, umbrella policy document. That's the point at which you're going to want to take a look at your existing codes, your existing other plans, and determine, do we need to do these, how do we need to update these to conform with our newly adopted comprehensive plan? So what I'd recommend you do is you do your comprehensive plan first, and then you come back after that and update your bicycle and pedestrian plan based on that comprehensive plan update.
But funding still to be there?
Yep.
Probably.
Totally. If it's not, I'm out of a job. So it better be this. It
Yeah, I
better
don't
be.
want to ask you that. Sometimes things get pulled.
Oh, I know. No. And so again, as an MPO, we get federal funding to do transportation planning for Ashwaubenon and all the other urbanized area communities. So if you wanted to do, let's say, a bike and pedestrian plan update in 2025, let us know, and we would be more than happy to do it for you.
So you would have funding, we wouldn't have to apply or do a grant or anything? The
Nope.
county will take care of that?
Correct. All you would have to do is just let me know.
Okay.
And we can incorporate that into our planning work program for whatever year, 25, whatever it might be. And as long as we can do that and get it approved by the state DOT and Federal Highway Administration, which has never been a problem in the past for these things, we're good to go. And so we would do it at no cost to you.
So I just wanted to put that forth because I knew they had done some for other communities that I've worked in, and just to see if they still did it and how that would work. And,
Yep, we do that and we can do it for you.
What's, because I know this would come up, what's the value, say Brown County didn't do it, to do a full rework of our current plan, Tracy, you might be able to have a better idea on this. I mean, what are we talking? We're probably talking like 35, 50?
to redo a plan or to do one from scratch, I don't know. I haven't done one for a while, so I'm not sure what the current price would be on them. I mean, you might have a better idea, like a go for bid or request for proposals.
It really all depends on the extent of the update. I mean, if you're going to do an update, it might be, I don't know, consultants, they charge money. So, and sometimes it can be a lot. So, well, I mean, Natalie left. I don't remember, obviously the city of Green Bay bike and pedestrian
This was
plan.
over $100,000 for
Right.
3 days.
But that's a much bigger
huge
project,
plan.
and it was beyond the city limits because it included the school district.
Yes.
So, and Kim, you remember that. I mean, you got the grant for that and everything else when you were at the district. And so, yeah, that project cost over $100,000. So, but for something the size of Ashwaubenon, it could cost 50, 60, maybe, potentially. So yeah, but again, something we've done for a long time, we have a lot of experience with, is doing those plans and plan updates for urbanized area communities at no cost to them.
When did Green Bay do
2 years ago, right?
No, it's been about
Has it been that
4,
long?
it was pre-pandemic.
Oh, that's right.
It was approved, I think, in 2019.
it? There was a 40 or 50% inflation back.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in Green Bay combined their safe routes to school and their bike pedestrian plan. So it was a huge,
Yeah,
bigger project
yeah,
than a
it's a-
typical
wow.
bike and ped plan.
It
So,
was, and it was school district wide. So it
Right,
went
so
to
it was
Alloway
big,
and Bellin.
Oh.
It was not just the city.
yeah.
It was this kind of, it was a joint effort between the school district and the city.
Yes.
But, when we did the one in Alloway
Yeah.
in 2011 or so, I mean, that was a safe routes to school and bike and pedestrian plan.
Also, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Rock County did that for us when I was working there. So,
At no cost to
yeah,
Alloway.
and no cost to us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I vote yes.
So, but yeah, again, what I would do is, if you're gonna do a plan update, comprehensive plan update really soon, do that first. Get that finished, identify your priorities, from a general standpoint, and then use that to determine what direction you wanna go with your bike plan and your other plans and codes.
Joel, do you have a timeline on the comp plan at all?
I can address
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry, Karen.
Yep. Actually, I just posted the RFP for the comprehensive plan update today.
Okay.
Sent it out to some different consultants, including Brown County. I'm hoping to get a number that I can then put into the budget for 2024.
Okay.
So I'd like to have it funded and done in 2024, if not, early part of 2025, if need be. So usually it's a 12 to 14 month process.
Well, there is no mandate that our bike and ped plan get updated, unlike the comp plan that has a state mandate to be updated. The bike and ped plan, the more updated it is, obviously, the more relevant it is, and the easier it is to use to apply for grants and other funding sources. But we're not in a critical crunch in timing to get the bike and ped plan updated. It's been 5 years. We've done a lot of projects in it. It's due to be updated.
It is, yeah.
But it's not going to be mission critical.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yep.
Any other questions of Cole, and thanks for
Oh, yeah, sure.
answering that.
Yeah, so I guess one other thing with that, if you do decide to update your bike plan in 2025, and you would like us to do that, try to let us know before, say, July of 2024. Because that's the point at which we start to put together a work program and our budget for the next year.
When did you say, Cole?
If you could let us know if you want to do a 2025 plan, if you want to let us know before July of 2024.
Okay.
Before
So
that.
whatever, we need to let them know by July for whatever year.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yep, if you could.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't, we can still kind of work with that, but it helps us to develop a work program, because if others are asking us to do it as well, you'll get in first, and we'll reserve the spot,
Right. Sounds good.
so you'll be all set.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, anybody? Thank you.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Now I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. All right, so we're on to item 8C, the Bellin Health Ambulatory Surgical Center site plan updates. We talked about this quite a while ago, and then at the last meeting, Joel was going to update us, and we're all getting really confused what he was talking about. We didn't know what it was. So Joel, if you could just.
Okay, so this is not a final version of the parking lot plan. This is their most recent copy. If you recall, Bellin obviously is building the ambulatory center at the old Menard site on Coffee and Allied Street. That particular site involved multiple parcel acquisitions for the ambulatory center and its ancillary parking locations. Originally part of the site plan, they had identified and kind of more of an internal trail network. Yep. So this is Oneida Street right here, or Wabi, I should say. This is Allied right here. There's a Quick Trip right there on the corner, right? In any event, so they acquired a variety of parcels. Originally, as part of their site plan, they included kind of an internal walking network for their customers. And the village had inquired with them as part of their site plan to add perimeter accessibility for pedestrians across the entirety of the site plan. Now, they did come back, obviously. One of the plans was a trail that will extend around I guess it would be kind of more the northeastern portion of the property, if I have my bearings correctly. Yeah.
Safe,
East to northeast, if you will. Their north arrow is this way, so it's a little goofy. In any event, what they did do is come back and mention to us that they are planning on full build out of their 5-story building. So originally when they proposed their building, they're only going to build floors 1 and 2, and the rest was going to be kind of left vacant until such time it was deemed appropriate. They have now since come back and are planning on full build out of the entire building, which means they're bringing more employees, more patient care to the facility. And as a result of that, some of those office and other buildings, hotel along Allied were raised to accommodate the additional parking that was necessary to meet that. As part of that, they had to come back with a parking plan, and with that parking plan, they identified some sidewalks that they were willing to accommodate per our request. It was not a requirement at the time of site plan approval, so I want to make sure that we're clear on that when this came through site plan review approval, sidewalks were not a requirement. So we did ask them for voluntary assistance on that, and they've obliged. So this is the, I guess, northwest corner. So this is Oneida again, Allied Street, Quick Trip on the corner. They did have a trail that kind of looped around on this north end here. Now this is kind of their draft plan. They were planning on constructing sidewalk along the right of way on Allied, and then bringing it through on this little blue stretch to eventually what would be that trail. Now, when we met with them, we had asked that this trail be actually converted to sidewalk as well and extend that sidewalk to this first driveway. We did ask them to extend sidewalk along this driveway down to the front of the entrance of the building. So if people are leaving the facility, they can walk on the sidewalk to the intersection here and then cross to whatever businesses are on the other side of the street. Now, we don't have a formal plan back from them, but they seemed agreeable with that concept, okay? Now, they did X out the trail here because they were going to extend sidewalk. We did ask them maybe just to keep the sidewalk along the right of way, but bring it back from the road because right now it's back of curb. So just to create that terrace area, again, we don't know exactly what they're going to do. Then they were going to add sidewalk along Allied. This is new to their site plan because originally on their first site plan, I don't think that they actually had ownership yet of this building. So this was acquired after their site plan. So they do have sidewalk along Allied. I'm going to flip pages here quick, and then this will bring us down to Parkview. Yep. So again, they acquired these 2 buildings, looking at improving this driveway entrance here. This parking lot is being constructed, then this parking lot, sidewalk along Allied, all the way to the intersection, and then sidewalk would come down. And essentially what we asked them to do on Parkview is have the sidewalk and then extend it on this blue portion, which was that trail, to eventually connect to what will be the employee entrance of the facility. And they seemed agreeable to that as well. So those are the improvements right now that they're looking at.
Is that the railroad track that's there, Joel?
The railroad track would be this line here. Yeah.
So they're almost going as far as the railroad track with the sidewalk, and then they have the gravel one going up and around.
Yep. Aaron, any other feedback? Any other?
No, that's
basically
really accurate. Yeah.
I have a question. There's a comment on this corner of Parkview and Allied that says something about parking, that it'll provide sidewalks to corner and curb cut here to accommodate parking across the street.
So
they have employee parking on this.
Yeah, there's a retail strip center right here, and they're discussing with that building owner the possibility of leasing parking from that building or from that property owner, because they anticipate that they may have peak demand for parking issues where they have to send some employees onto that lot. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure I'm not misspeaking.
Yeah, no, it's very preliminary at this point. I think that's kind of they need to see how it's going to fill out. And then, like Joel said, initially they planned the first 2 floors, now it's all 5. So I think to some degree, they're trying to hedge their bets a little bit, make sure that they have an option for additional parking if they need it.
That's what they do downtown, St. Pete's.
Yeah, they have remote
Lots, so you can see people walk, the nurses and hospital staff walking back and forth all the time.
So then my question on that is, when that is approved, or if they go ahead with that, to have some kind of safe crossing for Parkview. So even a crosswalk marked coming off the end of that sidewalk, going to the south side of Parkview, or even crossing over Ally, depending again on how they're gonna move to that. Because it's gonna get busier out there. Parkview and Ally is gonna be a much busier road with this new facility going in. So I think that's something we need to really think about when they
Right.
decide to go there.
When they, if and when they bring that parking lot to the south forward for site plan review, at that point, I'll take that into account and say, okay, might have 100 cars parking here.
Yeah.
Okay, how are we gonna safely get folks across Parkview up to the
Get
ASC?
in there, yeah. So yeah, that was my concern when I said I know it on there.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that they're putting sidewalks in there.
Yep. That was worth it.
So
Yeah.
when we first discussed this, when we first discussed this, we talked about, yeah, okay, exactly, right. We talked about a couple of spurs, one of them going due north, a very short one towards the Ashwaubenon bowling alley, which would at least get to that closest hotel for people that need to do an overnight stay at the hospital. You know, they may or may not, the closest one is right across the street. So we're talking about maybe doing a little bit of a spur to that hotel or the bowling alley. We had also discussed or bantered a little bit going on Wabi from Allied up to Ridge on the south side of the road, so that the employees would have a connection to the trail, and have a wider variety of walking options.
Yeah.
Is that, are we still considering that, or?
Oh, yeah.
So I think, yeah, that would be outside the Bellin project scope, obviously, but I think it's definitely projects that should be identified in the bike committee's work plan, if you will, and then get planned for in future budget projects.
The other piece of that is heading northeast on Wabi up towards Oneida, towards, we talked about extending the sidewalk up to the restaurant. Barbecue place.
Oh,
Parker John.
Parker John, that's it. That was part of what we put in as well. My question on that, I've heard mixed on getting the sidewalk under
That
the
was not,
41.
yeah.
And I've heard that, no, we can't do it. I've heard, yes, we can work with DOT. So my question is, can we get a definitive answer on that? Just, I mean, I know it's gonna cost money. I know it's gonna be difficult, but we've heard both. So has anybody really sat down with DOT and said, we would consider this, what would be, just so we know?
my
Whether that's an
understanding
option or not.
is DOT will allow it. However,
Right.
we would need to reconstruct the entire interchange.
Everything.
We
already talked with the DOT, I think
Yeah.
it was a big meeting on it.
So this interchange right here that has what's called a slip lane.
Yep.
This slip lane would not be compatible with pedestrian crossing. So we would need to reconstruct this entire interchange here. And at the time, I think when we talked to them, it was well over $1 million to reconstruct that interchange.
I can believe that.
To add or to eliminate that slip lane. The other issue that we have that definitely would be problematic for us is we would need to acquire right of way. A heavy portion of that is right by this Ramada Way. Currently, the right of way extends right up to the back of curb. So we would need to purchase right of way or an easement to put a sidewalk in that area. Could be problematic and certainly likely will be problematic given the current state of affairs with that recent circuit court ruling on right of way and taking. So is it possible? The answer is yeah, it's possible, but how much are you willing to spend?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, I didn't know that had been discussed. I didn't know that we had a definitive answer.
Yeah, we
I
went
think the
through.
question for us it still is, so how do we get people safely across from
Right.
the one side to the other side where the restaurants and that
Yes,
is?
to get over by like where
Because you know they're gonna go.
Starbucks is. Yes,
They're gonna go across that road.
right.
And they're,
And
to
there's a
your point, I
crossing.
think you made, they fly there.
Yeah, oh,
Because they're going
Yeah.
up the ramp or they're coming off the.
yeah.
And I think one of the comments that we had with Bellin is that there's a trail that extends on the north property that, intended to loop around. I don't know if some signage or the elimination of that trail, just so that people don't feel like there's this false pretense that I can walk.
Yeah,
To get there, ideally, you probably want them to cross at Adelaide
right.
and
Right.
Wabi versus going under the bridge on a cow path to then cross back.
Well, and you know as well as I do, look at Hanson Road. How many people walk on the south side of that road where there's no sidewalk and there's a sidewalk?
They do that
Because
way.
They will not walk that
Yeah.
street. And here, you're crossing, when you're on the north side, I guess, of the overpass, there's 6 lanes there.
Yeah.
So people crossing, they're crossing with light and alley, they're crossing 4, then they walk up, and then they cross another 6 without an improve. So I realize that there are some major issues with that, but just so we understand that, maybe someday in the future is something that we go, okay, that this is really important now, or something changes, or whatever the case may be, but it's, at least we know that it's not, DOT has not said, nope, you never can do it. And that's what I thought at the last meeting, that there's just no way we can do it, but it sounds like that's not the case, so, which is great. Anything, any other questions on that, anybody, or any more clarifications? Joel and Aaron, thanks for working on that and getting that done. It's really important to have the sidewalks there at that site,
Yeah.
so everybody can use. Great. Then our next bike and ped meeting is scheduled for July 10th. I have a few agenda items maybe we could add to that. I guess I had further discussion on Holmgren Way study, but just look at that, get some ideas, think about that. We won't put it on the agenda. Could we get a report, Joel, on the 2022-2023 trail plowing pilot project that we had? Could we get that maybe at our next meeting, or maybe not, maybe the August meeting, if we can get it together? Just so we can revisit that and see how it went, what was good. Pardon?
Probably better in July.
So I think the budget will be coming up, so maybe we can do that in July.
If Brian was able to put it together. I don't think we did a lot of plowing because of the mild winter.
Yeah, it was
Not until March and April.
I know.
Not until spring.
Yeah,
we can do any
then we got it. Is there any other education, or the education section, the bike friendly application, if we can see about getting that on the agenda? Anything else, agenda items that anybody has?
So we've probably talked about this, I'm sure we have. And I had a question asked me, are we working on something to try to get people off across Packerland?
That came up, we talked about that.
I just had somebody ask me the question again within the last.
And I know
week.
Doug put it in some document or something, but I don't think it ever went any further than that. So the question that came up to me from one of the residents in that area was to create a safe crossing from all those residential areas that are on the east side of Packerland for them to safely get to the trail on
To
the
the
west
trail.
side.
Exactly, that was what I was asking.
Yes, and I know Doug did some preliminary work on that. I thought we put it into some document or something, if I remember, but I don't think there's been anything really concrete done with it, you know what I mean, like location or anything. So that's a good call. I thought about that the other day too, because I was crossing over there.
Well, I did, but I was.
Yeah, so maybe we could do some research and see what was done with that, and if there was anything, or what plan it got put in. or whatever.
I think that's the first I've heard of that one, so.
Yeah, I don't think, in terms of putting anything into a document, I don't.
Yeah,
I know we talked about it, maybe we didn't get it in,
But it never got
yeah,
into anything.
I think we should.
yeah, I
We
think so
should,
too. It's,
because there is a lot of
yes,
population on that east side
and
there.
there's not a safe crossing for there to get over there.
No.
Maybe on 172, but
There's a few restaurants on the
I
other
know
side.
we had talked about whether it would be viable, I think where we left it is whether it would be viable to do a mid-block crossing.
Yeah,
Off of one of the
that could be. that
Yes,
could be.
I think-
And that was, it was a verbal conversation.
yeah, I know
That
Doug
was-
talked to the resident up there and met with them and all kinds of stuff was done. But I don't know where he went or how much for that one, but I think I'm talking about that.
So these are almost have to be similar to what's
Yeah.
up on Ridge by the stadium
Yeah, exactly.
with the flashing.
Yeah, so if we could put that on the agenda too, that would be great for next month and just see if there was any research or anything done on that. Great. Max, I'm sorry, we bypassed you because you came in late. Is there anything you want to add from the park and rec?
No, welcome. I don't know if you both look familiar, so I must have seen you around, but I'm Rex. With the Park Rec and Forestry Department, so. thanks for being part of our committee.
Thank you. Pretty interesting so far.
Yeah.
Good job on the bridge, Rex. Wow.
Yeah, bridge looks
I never realized it was that long.
extensive.
Oh, it's coming along. A couple little hiccups that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
It
too.
is gonna be.
Look at it from the water. It's-
I'm thinking they'll probably decorate it in winter with lights.
Oh. There you go, Rex.
We've
Your gazebo.
the bridge is actually, so we've got the railing, and then the bottom tubing on the railing will have inset LED lights
Oh.
the whole way.
See? Oh,
It can be
Any
controlled,
like right next to Bridge.
There you go.
be able to be controlled remotely from here at Village
From
Hall,
Rex's
the South
house.
Center.
Is that
No
access
kidding.
all the time or
And-
just certain
and you can
times
put-
get into the park?
Make different color schemes.
Oh,
that is
on
cool.
what you want.
No
that is cool.
restrictions on park road?
So, but there's no overhead lights, everything is.
What made
inset.
you think of that, or did they just
Bridge
suggest
so
that?
we'll be able to-
What's that?
To add that, or,
That was just an idea that was popped up.
You did
I love it,
like
I love it.
thing like
So I'm sorry, someone had a question.
a share.
Just wondering about the hours for the bridge.
They're gonna close off the bridge, I say close off. I love it, at 10 o'clock.
To be determined. I don't even think we've gone that far.
It's good.
All right, anything else? Otherwise, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
That's one of you people.
So moved. So moved by Kim, I need a second. Second by Sharon.
Yeah,
All those in
perfect.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you in July.